Hello YouTubers, welcome back to my channel. So in this conversation, I'm going to be speaking with Paula M, the YouTuber that speaks on Meghan Markle and the royal family a lot. And she's going to give me some insight into why there's so much vitriol against her, because she has a different story that is abuse, in a sense, from her ex-husband. And one of the reasons why I wanted to speak about this or to address this is because whenever I've done a video with Paula, I immediately get so many emails about why I should not be talking with Paula. And you know what the ironic thing is that Paula, she gets the exact same emails about me, why Paula should not do videos with me and how I'm such a horrible person. So I'm like so confused. Why is this happening? Why? So I want everyone out there who have based opinions about Paula to really listen to her story and to understand, because I really had to talk to her about this. Why are people saying these things about you to me? I just could not understand it. And I think it's important to hear her story and to really know who she is and what she has gone through. Now, at the same time, I'm not really speaking about the letters and the emails that she gets about me. I've actually seen them. I've seen them, and people will say things that are so far left field. Like, I'm like, what? That they saying that is me? It is so off the mark. So I can get how when celebrities talk about just lies made up about them, people are already making up lies about me, and I'm just some little YouTuber, and they go telling Paula, and she's, you know, like, that's not PDina, she's not like this, and you know, it's absurd. It is so crazy. So in my platform to be a teachable platform and to learn, I really wanted to bring some insight to Paula's story, the things that we've talked about. Paula has been great to me. She is definitely someone who has given me a lot to learn, as well as she's learned a lot from me, because we are from different worlds, but yet at the same time we're so similar in a lot of other ways. So this conversation with Paula is really going to give you insight into her personal story and tell you why people feel so strongly about Paula when they think they know her, when they really, I'm not sure, really know her full story and what she has gone through. So here's the video.
Hi, Paula.
Hi, Miss PDina. How are you, sweetie?
I'm fine.
Hi, Paula.
Say hi to Miss Samantha.
Hi, Sam. How are you, sweetie?
Hi, how are you? I had to put on my glasses.
I love your look. I love your look. I love the hair color.
It's called We're Getting Older.
It does look good, Samantha. Yeah. And your glasses look fine. I think your glasses look fine.
Yeah, they're a little bit like, hey, my glasses are foggy. No, it's like, yeah, they're reading glasses. So I've noticed every year I need stronger readers. That's an old age thing.
Yeah. So what I want to do is just kind of bring Paula into the story, because the things, and I love the point, just to go back real quickly about what you were saying, Samantha, about when you let teenagers get away with certain things with these lies, like it carries over into their adult life, and then they're causing harm with their lies to other people in their life. And it's just a cycle. It has to be broken. But Paula, you've been going through something somewhat a little different. And I know that people have been giving you a hard time. I even get a hard time. But I think what Paula has gone through has spilled over into her personal life. And now that she's on YouTube, and when I speak with Paula, it spills over into my life, because then I get backlash for speaking with Paula. And it's like, why do people feel like they have to have all this attacking anger about someone that they don't know? No, I know I speak about Meghan. I don't know her personally, but I'm looking at behavior and actions, and I'm looking at character. But people are really vicious in their attacks. And Paula, I want you to let us know a little bit about what happened in your life and why are you getting these attacks? We heard why Samantha was getting the attacks in her life. What's been happening to you most recently? Go ahead and unmute.
Well, it all started. I was in a very abusive relationship with somebody who is very high up in the Norwegian government. He works for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in the Norwegian government. And there was domestic violence, there was psychological violence, there was something called gaslighting, which I found out the term much later on, because I didn't even know what that was. To me, it was just the way of life at home. And everything developed when you have such high jobs, you need security clearance. So you cannot have any accusations of domestic violence, child abuse, or anything like that, because then you lose your job and you lose everything basically. So everything started in 2013 when a typical domestic abuse home thing. The thing is that in Norway, because I was living in Norway at the time, every time I had gone to the police station, bleeding or whatever, I was always kicked out because they would tell me that I wasn't a real Norwegian. That translates to being white, blonde. That's, to them, it was actually annoying for me that I would come to the police station to accuse one of their own, and I was told, the thing is that people don't understand when you're living in Norway, they don't hide it. Worldwide, they have this image, but when you're in their country, it's like their rules and you're not a real Norwegian, even though I was a Norwegian citizen. So, but that Easter in 2013, things got out of hand. And because I knew I couldn't call the police, I contacted the crisis center to help me calm him down because Henrik, my son, was there with me. We were locked in the bathroom. And the crisis center, the lady heard Henrik say something and she said, "Is there a child there with you?" And I said, "Yes." And then they asked for your social security number. And with that, they know all your life. So she immediately said, "Is that so who happens to be my son?" I said, "Yes." And then she said, "But, I'm going to call the police." And I begged her not to because, my experience had been that they never paid attention to me. And I was worried that they were going to accuse me of something because by that time I was, you think everything is your fault, really, So when the police came, for the first time, it wasn't the same police. It wasn't my ex-husband's friends who would come to the house because he was very good friends with the police because of his job. He had ties everywhere. So these were different policemen, and we were told that we could leave the house, because we couldn't stay there. It was safe. The next thing I know, they left. And then my ex-husband came sometime later, the 4th of April. He came to the house completely panicking, saying that he was in trouble, that it was all my fault, that he was going to lose his job, that we had to leave the country. And Pat, I remember saying to him, "But if anything were to happen, it would have happened by now because they came on March 30th and we're already April 4th. I'm sure they would have done something by now." So my mind, he was, exaggerating. And I even said to him, besides, when the police came, I blamed myself. I kept blaming myself. I said, "It was my fault. It was my fault. Everything was my fault. So why would they come after you, But it turns out that they did. I found out years later that they actually had put forward, because of his contacts, he was able to get into the Norwegian government, and find out that actually the policemen that had come to the house this time, because of what my son had said, they said that there was evidence of abuse, and that the victim, I never heard myself being referred to as a victim until I read the document, and that the female victim was acting as a typical domestic violence, victim, blaming yourself, trying to shift responsibility. So, but I found out about it later on, but he knew. So he asked me to leave the country because he said that at any moment now they would come. At that time, I was studying at PDina, taking more classes. PDina is the University of Norway. I had my job. I had everything, So to me was, I don't want to go. Why can't we go in June? This is just, this is just April. I finished my university in May, but he was completely adamant that we should leave because he thought that children's services at any time, and then the police would come into the house. I'll tell you, at that time, I thought, you know what, I'm going to take advantage of this. And because things had escalated. Henrik was much older. And after my ex-husband's mother died, it's like something the restraint, his restraint, went to the moon, like he felt now that he had no father or no mother. He had nobody, I don't know, I guess to protect his reputation for, because he was very concerned about what his mother thought, or he has always been very concerned about what other people think about his image. So I remember I went to the school. He was at the school grounds. The lady even called him. She didn't know that he was in the school parking lot because he didn't want to show his face because he said that he was the accused. And if he came with me to take Henrik out, it would seem very odd. At that time, I was just panicking because I felt so guilty that he was in so much trouble. I felt it was my fault that he was in so much trouble, so I was trying to do everything I could to help him. So we left that April 6th, but in my mind, I was going to use that trip to file for divorce because I no longer wanted to be with him. And to tell you the truth, I was scared of what he would do if I were in Norway and I filed for divorce. So what I did is I said, and he thought I was going to stay there in Nicaragua for 3 to 6 months because that's what we had agreed upon, because these investigations take up to 6 months. So, and his main concern, it wasn't that the police would come and interrogate me, but they would come and interrogate our son. Because you see, our son was very smart. Even in the police report, Henrik was at that time 11. And the policeman said, at his 11 years of age, it has the maturity of an 18-year-old person and is incredibly smart. So as he told me repeatedly, I don't care what you're going to say. I'm worried what Henrik is going to say. And that's going to be what's going to be the nail in my coffin. So we left. But the funny thing is, I actually wanted to come back. And what I did is I hired a lawyer in Norway because my intention was not to stay in Nicaragua, but to come back to Norway. So I hired a lawyer in Norway even before we left. And he served the papers to him as soon as I was in Nicaragua, as soon as I was safe. And that basically, he lost it. He really lost it. And then it's so funny because, he said some things he said that he didn't want me to get divorced from him because he said that without him, I would not know what to do with myself. So it was for my own good that he wasn't allowing me to get divorced. So it was all of this. And what I did then is I said, my lawyer in Norway said, you know what, he has a lot of influence here. If you can get divorced in Nicaragua, just get divorced, which I did. And it's so funny when you are in a very abusive relationship because I kept talking to him all the time. He was talking to Henrik. We went to the schools that he wanted Henrik to go to school, So I said to my lawyer in Norway, I will get divorced here. And I even told Alf, I wasn't hiding it from him. And he never took it seriously. He never thought I would go through with the divorce. So on May 8th, 2013, I actually went to the courts here in Nicaragua and I filed for divorce. And I immediately, you're in that frame of mind that you tell them everything that immediately, for me, it was like, if I do this, I have to tell Alf, he was like my father, worse than my dad, because I didn't even tell my dad stuff, But to me, I was conditioned to I felt guilty if I didn't disclose things to him. So I immediately took the copy to him and I took it to the Norwegian consulate. And I said, I left the documents there. Because of the time difference, he was so angry. He was so livid. He said that I had embarrassed him. Why did I have to take those documents to the Norwegian consulate, that he was not going to allow me to get divorced, that I didn't know what I was doing, that I wasn't thinking straight, and blah, blah, blah. So I said, I'm going to go through with this. I remember my heart was racing, I was so nervous because I felt like it was the first independent act I've ever done in many, many years. At this point, we've been married 13 years. So I'll never forget. It was a feeling of, I was exhilarated, but at the same time, really scared. And then he said to me that he was going to go to the police and accuse me of kidnapping. I started laughing and I said, nobody's going to believe you. We've been talking on the phone. I have videos of you saying, because he actually was going to come in June for Henrik's birthday. So I said, there's no way. This is such a blatant lie, but sure enough, he did. The next thing I know, and then we kept talking to each other. He kept trying to talk me out of getting divorced. And I said, I really want to get divorced. I don't, if Henrik wants to go back to Norway, he can go to Norway, but I'm going to stay here because I was actually afraid for my life. I figured if I go back to Norway without getting divorced, things are going to get out of hand, especially knowing that in Norway, they would never protect me, nor my son, because my son is a half breed. That's what they would call my son. He was a half breed. I mean, they call you that to your face, This is, I mean, nobody can sue me because I have all of this in writing, So from the Norwegian officials at every level. Okay, so my son was a half breed. He had some Norwegian blood because his father was Norwegian, but and I'm Canadian, and I went to the Canadian embassy, and the Canadian embassy, I talked to Milen, and Milen was his lady. She said, I'm Canadian too, Paul, and I'm married to a Norwegian. And, unfortunately, as long as the laws are there, you can't do anything, just, stay safe and whatever. So, so that started with that. And I remember when he said that he was going to go accuse me of kidnapping Henrik May 8th. I went immediately and I called the Norwegian police and I said, sir, my name is so-and-so. My social security number is this. I am here with my son. I haven't kidnapped him, blah, blah, blah. And I remember the policeman, he goes, ma'am, what are you talking about? And I said, well, my husband at the time, because we were still married, told me that he has gone to the police and accused me of kidnapping. And then, in Norway, you don't know this, but in Norway, it's very centralized. And especially when it's kidnapping of a child, this is a very major crime. So the first thing they do is they lock down things. There's a red alert and a yellow alert, right? And all you need to give is your social security number and it will pop up. So the policeman said, ma'am, no. And I said, yes, my husband, because I was so conditioned to believe everything he said, Pat, So I said, yes, my husband told me so. And he goes, oh, well, your husband told you so. And the guy goes, are you guys getting along? And I said, well, and then he goes, well, ma'am, I can tell you there's nothing. I still didn't believe the policeman. I said, I begged him and I said, can you please contact our area, the police in our area? So I nagged him so much that he said, okay, call me back in about 10 minutes. And you can see this because I have all the phone records, all the phone bills, and you can see the calls I made. So I called him back in 10 minutes and he said, ma'am, there's nothing here. And I even said to him, because I've never been involved in anything like this in my life, Pat. And I was like, can I leave a message? I am here. And I remember the policeman laughing, saying, if all the criminals called us to tell us where they were, I would be out of a job. And he said, this is, ma'am, with all due respect, this is not a hotel. You cannot leave a message, And so I let it go. I figured, well, this is just another lie from him, whatever it was. The next thing I know, Pat, and we kept talking. We kept talking because I felt guilty that I was getting divorced. And then the last time we videotaped him and we talked, it was May 17th, which is National Day in Norway, 2013. And he was telling us he was going to come to spend Henrik's birthday in June. He was going to send us the details. And he told me that we were going to talk, that he was going to, it was something along the lines of, we're going to talk and I'm going to talk some sense into you. You can't get divorced. It's not good for you. And then I kept saying, no, I am getting divorced. And then after that, I didn't hear from him. The next thing I know, I got a phone call from the Ministry of Family here in Nicaragua saying that there had been a case against me for international child abduction per the Hague Treaty. It is an international treaty. I thought it was a joke. The funny thing is he didn't call Henrik for his birthday, the dedicated father. And it was my shock when I walked into the offices because of course I took Henrik and he was sitting there. The first thing I said was, why didn't you call your son for your birthday? The thing is that during that meeting, Norway was one of the biggest donors for Nicaragua. And Alf was in charge of deciding which countries got help from Norway. To give you an idea, Norway financed all the courts, all the buildings. They built new buildings, for the courts, and Norway was the main finance, country. So there was a lot of bilateral help. So at that meeting, he said that if I were to go back with him and I forgot this nonsense of divorce, he would call it off. And I said, Henrik can go back if he wishes to. At that time, he was 12. I didn't know my son was being interviewed because I'd never been in anything like this in my life, Pat. And so, and Henrik, came up with Henrik. Henrik was being interviewed. Henrik completely refused to go because my son was horribly bullied at the school that he was going to. Even the police was involved, and then nothing was done. My son lost a lot of weight. It was just horrible, and he hated coming home because of the violence at home that I thought I was hiding from him, which turned out I wasn't doing a very good job. When I read the police report in Norway much later, and he described some things that I was so ashamed that I allowed that to go for so long, Mm-hmm. So after that, when I refused to leave, it was just like, it was such hatred. And everybody and then when I presented the evidence, because what he said is that we left on our flight left on Sunday, the 7th of April, right? We left the house on the 6th. We went to Oslo because we didn't live in Oslo. We live in Oslo. My ex came to the station. I was calling him when we went to the hotel because we had to sleep at the hotel at the airport because the flight left too early and there's no public transportation or anything at that time. So we stayed at a hotel that he paid for because he was so glad we were leaving. And then, and we've been talking. I mean, there was communication. For me, it was a shock because I said there's so much. We have video evidence of him saying to stay here because emails from my lawyers from Norway at the time saying Ms. Matanovic wants to come back, but she doesn't want to come back to the house. And he's like, no, she can't come back. He canceled my tickets. He declared my cards lost. And when I tried to get my cards back, my debit card, my bank cards, they would only send them to the house in Norway. And immediately, the Norwegian government completely, fully backed them.
So what was all the vitriol that you started getting? Because I know you still get.
Well, it was amazing because he started it. He had access to the press. I remember there was this huge article in the major newspaper in Norway called Aftenposten, where it's so embarrassing. I was talking to my lawyer because I won the case, and my lawyer said, poor Edward, because he's using Edward. He's sitting in Henrik's room. I mean, it was like a 3-page display of this terrible woman and everything. It was just horrible. And then I was painted like this terrible person. And then we received a call after they had published this huge, big article. It was like 2 pages with like 8-9, pictures of Henrik and everything. Mm-hmm. And then the guy contacted us, and I said to him, because you see, the police had seen the evidence. So they talked to Alf and they said, sir, you realize that with this evidence, you're lying. Mm-hmm. Right? But they did nothing because there was no way Nicaragua was going to act against one of their major donors. Right. So what happened is, like, they really wanted me to go with him. I remember one of the ladies saying, but he must really love you so much. He beats you up because he loves you. If he didn't care about you, he wouldn't beat you up. Don't you get it? And then I was like, and people like you, because, we were upper class or whatever you want to call it. He goes, aren't you embarrassed that you're coming here? That this is for, for people that are poor. You shouldn't be doing this. And I'm like, I only want to get divorced. So, and it's so funny. And then he started this campaign of the poor men. He even went to Washington years later. He even created this website that he didn't have access to. Henrik was calling him. He would ignore his calls. I mean, he had access to everything. And during that meeting, when I was called and I said, I'm going to, Henrik can go back. But of course, because my son refused to go, and according to the children's rights and even this international child abduction treaty, children over the age of 7 must be heard in all decisions concerned. And Henrik was 12 at the time and very smart, So because Henrik refused to go, we had to go to trial.
Because
I never refused Henrik going back. I said, my son can go back if he wishes to do that. First of all, because he has a big mouth and he's, if he doesn't want to be with me, how kids are. I think Sam also knows how kids are. When they don't want something, they will tell you. So there's no point in me holding him or nothing. So I said, if Henrik wants to go, it's his life too. He has a choice, he can go. But he was so happy here. He was going to a school that he loved, the school, nobody bullied him, like he actually looked forward to going to the school. He loved the weather, he loved the people, there was no violence in the house. He was with his grandma, so he didn't want to leave. So basically the trial, even though it was said that it's because I was withholding him, which was a lie, was about me defending Henrik's right to stay, to choose to stay. I've tried to have my son declare insane. Henrik, at the age of 12, I would take him in the mornings to psychologists because Alf was saying that he's insane. He must be insane. He tried to have me declared insane because only an insane person would divorce him. And it's amazing. Then I started going to therapy to understand that it wasn't my fault, that I had a right to get divorced, he didn't have a right to be abusive towards me, but the abuse continued. So after that Afton Posting thing, after they had published the article, nobody contacted me before, nor Henrik. The guy contacted me, and I have the emails afterwards. And the guy said to me, well, they were really rude. You are a kidnapper. What have you got to say for yourself? Have you seen the article we published? And I didn't know he had published an article. So I went to look at it and I said, how dare you? And then I said, I will send you anything. I will send you the videos of what happened. And then the guy, and then I said, you can talk to Henrik. And he goes, can I? I said, yes, he's right here. You can talk to him as much as you like. And after talking to Henrik and after listening and reading all the evidence that I had, he just went quiet. And then he says, I have to talk to my editor. And then we received an email, which I have from him, saying that he was very sorry about what was published. However, they were not going to publish our side of the story. And that, but the best that they would do is never to speak or publish anything else about this. And I said to him, no, and Henrik, I remember Henrik saying to him, no, please publish our side of the story.
Right.
But they refused. They completely refused. So, and from then on, I've just started escalating the lies, because that's what he had to do in order to keep his reputation going. Once he had started that, it's like a snowball. It's like an avalanche, like an avalanche effect. It's like a snowball. It just rolls, and the lies got bigger. And he had access to press. He had the backing of the entire Norwegian system. And he went to Washington, I remember, and he talked on the fathers who are alienated from their children. And I mean, he was talking to Henrik on a daily basis. So, and then he just got from there. And then I remember, and then he tried to have me murdered 3 times. The last time was June 22nd, 2019. So I said, I've had enough. And the funny thing is, I won all the court cases. And my case, or the case, was supervised by the Americans. The American embassy was heavily involved. Canadian embassy, because we're Canadian, Norwegian, because we're also Norwegian, and of course Nicaraguan. I mean, they were supervised completely to make sure that there was no corruption. There was corruption because I finally got to see the documents, and when I went to Norway, and my trial was held in Norway in 2019. In 2020, in January 2022. And I'm saying another trial because I already had 4 that I won. But what my ex kept saying is like that I had slept with the president or the dictator or whatever you want to call it. Okay, you didn't sleep with the president, then you slept with the Supreme Court judges. Right. Okay, they're corrupt. They're this, they're that. They put a red alert against me in spite of the fact that I had won. This is under an international treaty. Mm-hmm. They knew there was evidence. The amazing thing to me is that during the trial in Norway, so after he tried to have me murdered the last time in June 22nd, 2019, that I broke my bones, I had 14 stitches to my head and everything. And him and his wife, he got remarried to somebody I knew, and I introduced him to. I thought, once he got married, it's going to let go. He's going to forget. He's happy now. It was the opposite. It was as though he had... he got another person to bully and continue harassing me and his son. He got married and he didn't invite Henrik, and Henrik was talking to him, asking him to send for him to Norway, and Henrik didn't even know he was going to get married. Henrik was really hurt. And I mean, Henrik would call him and tell him that, why don't you send for me for my ticket? There was very civil unrest here in Norway and Nicaragua in 2018-19. I was afraid for Henrik's life. And then I'm looking at city. And then and I asked Henrik to tell his father to send for him because, things were pretty bad here, and boys Henrik's age were at high risk. Of course, he didn't send for him, but at the same time, he was publishing this website and things with people saying, she doesn't let me speak to my son. She doesn't let me do this. My son is, I mean, it was gaslighting at its finest, So in January, it was really funny when I went to so I said, you know what, I've had enough. So I flew to Norway. And I remember when I was going over to Norway, they said, are you aware that there's a red alert? And I said, well, I know that there had been one, but I don't care if there's one anyway. So I'm going to Oslo if there's any issues. I want to go there. I'm not hiding. I've never hidden, but I just, I said, he can't keep sending people to kill me and get away with it, and I wasn't that worried about Henrik anymore because at that time, Henrik was 18, going on 19. So I wasn't worried about my son's safety anymore, So, and he was in Norway at the time. I went to Norway. Henrik went there ahead first. And when I landed, when I got to Norway, they kept looking at me, and I remember the policeman, the first thing they said to me was, why did you have to come back? And I'm like, wait a minute, aren't you happy I'm here? Weren't you looking for me, apparently? So what happened is that, and he has had free reign for 8 years with press, with backing from the government, which is why. So I wasn't able to get a job because he accused me of child trafficking. She had accused me of being a hacker, of being a spy, being a thief. I mean, and whenever I wanted to talk to newspaper reporters, they wouldn't want to print my story. Even when they saw all the evidence, they would always say, oh, we're sorry, we didn't know. And I'm like, okay, but now you do. But because he had such power, they didn't want to upset him. So I do know how Samantha feels, because let me tell you something. I won. My ex-husband claimed that I won the court cases in Nicaragua because of corruption. Now that I won it in Norway with 7 judges, let me tell you, somebody who looks like me, who's not an Aryan-looking person, blonde, blue eye, or whatever you want to call it, for me to win that court case in a very quick judgment, because it usually takes a minimum of 6 to 8 weeks for them to decide, it took him less than 2.
Wow.
And during the court, in 2014, there were emails between ALF and the Ministry of Justice. I call it injustice in Norway. When they're discussing and say, this is in writing. We can't see a lot of stuff because they blacked it out. But my lawyer now is asking for that to be removed because most of the pages were blacked out, and my lawyer said, why are we having blacked out pages between people? This is a civil court case. Why are we? She's not a terrorist or anything like that. But anyways, one of the emails that was there, my ex-husband is talking to the Ministry of Justice in Norway, and they're saying, well, it's a bit difficult to build a case against Paula because she's innocent of what we're trying to accuse her of. So they knew in 2014 that I was innocent. And they kept at it. And it was because of arrogance, hatred, racism, xenophobia, whatever you want to call it. But it is. It is. And they all tell you in Norway, we know we have a problem with that. And but
yeah, they're very racist. But can I just say something really quickly, Paula? Just listening to what you're saying, the similarities, how, first of all, you're both in these, somewhat abusive relationships. I mean, Samantha, you're in an abusive relationship with your sister.
Absolutely.
And these abusers have huge platforms. Their platforms are able to destroy you. So they're very careless in their responsibility with what they have, right? And you're not allowed to speak your truth. Neither one of you.
No. And the worst part of it all, Pat, is like, I couldn't get a job I couldn't start a business. I couldn't do anything. You should see the hatred, the vitriol. I mean, even now, after I won and I came back, I tried to do business with somebody, and the guy, everything was going great. And then the guy, after 4 or 5 days, the guy came in, and I went to my buddy and I said, have you heard about this guy? This is really odd. I thought the meeting went well. And so my friend contacted him right in front of me, right through WhatsApp. And he got a voice clip, saying that, that they had Googled me and that they wanted nothing to do with me.
Wow. And that's what I get. I told people tell me all the time, don't have anything to do with that, Paula. Don't, she is not good for you. And I'm just dumbfounded by listening to both of your stories, how this whole social media, this whole platform has ruined since your lives, essentially. Your life, because Samantha has the same issue with trying to get work.
Oh, yeah.
We were talking about that. That's just so unfair, and it's wrong.
And I'll tell you something, what makes it worse, at least for me. I'm pretty sure the same for Samantha, because, I talk on my YouTube channel a lot about why Harry and Meghan are still on the royal website. My ex, in spite of the fact that the 7 judges in Norway ruled that I was innocent and that pretty much he lied. He didn't lose his job. He's still on the Ministry of Foreign Affairs Norwegian website. He's going around traveling. He wasn't punished. And this is something that they know, that he lied about many things, which is pretty serious, because that's a criminal offense in Norway to lie. They know that the police didn't do their work. They know that the police lied. They know that the Ministry of Justice lied. The ambassador that was helping Alf up and down during the trials, he admitted, because my lawyer said to him, he was talking about how they helped Alf and blah, 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 right? So my lawyer turned to him and he says, wait a minute, and what did you do for Henrik and Paula? Because they're also Norwegian citizens and they came to you for help. And then he started saying, well, the Americans, and he goes, no. This has nothing to do with the Americans. I mean, my lawyer really kicks ass. Morten, he's one of the few Norwegians who's not racist and who's a pretty outstanding guy, him and his wife. But the guy finally, because you see, when things are exposed, they all want to, it wasn't me. I had to do it because so-and-so, So the ambassador immediately washed his hands and said, well, I received direct instructions from higher up, saying that we were not to assist Paula and Henrik, which is against many human rights laws. Because I wasn't asking for them to give me preferential treatment. I just wanted justice to be blind. And it was, I remember during the trial in Norway, at one point, one of the judges turned around and he said, and I remember he just was so embarrassed about everything that was ongoing. You can see that they were embarrassed about everything that was ongoing. And he goes, at one point he turned around, he says, and with all of this lady's here. It's like, what are we doing here, basically? But they're still helping him. He's still on the website. He's still employed by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And the worst part of it all, he's not being investigated for the lies he said. And the same thing goes for Harry and Meghan, because they're being bad. Meghan committed perjury. Meghan has had the free reins. It's been proven that she's lied about Samantha. And what has happened? What have been the consequences of this?
There's never
absolutely nothing. To me, I feel that Alf has been rewarded and continues to be rewarded and backed by a very racist government, because I don't like to claim racism, but it is in this case.
Well, that's obvious. They are. They even know they are. They know they're very racist. But so what? I'm sorry, Paula. Can I just ask you, so the people that email me, what is going on behind the scenes where you're attacked all the time, like Samantha, like this campaign is still going on against you, even though you've won this case? Like, what are your repercussions? Like, what can you do? How is your life going? Is it going to always be like this for you, with trying to maybe get a job or whatever? Like, you'll always have this reputation?
Well, that I don't know. I mean, my lawyer is working on something right now with Norway, because we're suing Norway for a bunch of things. The thing is that, and that's a very interesting question. You feel like it's a civil death. You're dead as a person. And that, a lot of times there's a saying in Spanish, is like, there's no such thing as a bad dead person. But it's in this case, when you have like a civil death, you are murder in the sense that your character is completely assassinated. You know, and it's I mean, I am getting on. For example, I assist the school and stuff like that. You know about my school, right, Pat? And immediately people start attacking me. You're a thief, you're a trafficker, why are you with children? And I'm like, wait a minute, this is why I published on my YouTube channel the judgment, the articles, everything. So to me, it's just that, and I am a very strong person. You know, I don't care what people say. It bothers me when it affects my livelihood because, you know, I am still helping my son out. He's studying aerospace engineering in Canada. But when it was pretty horrible when Hendrik was smaller and I wasn't, you know, Alf was attacking me with because he's an expert at suing people. He was launching so many lawsuits. I had no funds. I couldn't get access to my bank. I couldn't get anything. And the Norwegian government was helping him. And you know what's the worst part? Is that because Norway has such a public image worldwide. Oh, if Norway's backing Alf, then he must be telling the truth. And I'm pretty sure it's the same thing that Samantha gets, which is if the royal family is backing Meghan, it's because immediately, yes, for example, the monarchy and Norway, the platform and the government, they immediately grant or give these people credibility and respectability. And it's a hurdle to actually say, you know, this is when the first person tried to accuse a priest of rape, you know? And it's like, no, it can't be, and it's still taboo in many places. So it's like exposing all these things, you know. And I feel my heart goes out to Samantha because I mean, my ex is in Norway and I have a very small YouTube channel, you know, and I get all these hatred when I do. But, you know, it's so funny because when I was talking to people and I said I was talking to Samantha, I would get emails saying, oh, she's a child trafficker. She's a child molester. And I'm like, oh, she's a woman with loose morals and blah, blah. And, you know, and I used to wonder
from her sister.
Absolutely. And now we know where they come from because of Jason Knopf's emails.
Yeah, it's,
you know, it's that insidious thing, you know, that behind the scenes, all the backstabbing, all these people that send you emails, you know, why don't they come to me? You know, when you ask him, can you give me exactly what she has said? When people send me emails when I do lives with you, they send me emails about you.
They say, I know, right? You know me. It is a fascinating world out there. It's just crazy how people have such boldness, right? And I think it's because they feel like they are anonymous almost, right? And you know, they can say whatever they want and they can just be whoever they want because no one really knows who they are. And
but
it's sad. I gotta
tell you, my heart went out to Samantha because, I mean, compare to the monarchy, which has a huge platform.
Yours is much smaller, yeah, right?
Yes, yeah. And look at the damage. And I was thinking when I was watching. Yeah. When I was watching Meghan trash her sister without trashing her, and then when they had this Finding Freedom whole chapter dedicated to her, I don't know if Samantha should feel flattered or what, you know, but because she must live in Meghan's mind rent free to dedicate in print a chapter about her sister filled with lies.
Yeah, it's filled.
But still, you know, to this day, and I thought, oh my God, I know what it feels like to have somebody access to the media and stuff like that. But of course, Norway, but he went to Washington. If there's some things, if you Google my ex-husband's name, he went to Washington to speak about fathers who lose children and blah, blah, blah. And I started thinking, how is Samantha going to come back from this? So I really admire her for that.
Yeah, I admire both of you ladies. You guys have been through a lot. It's been a crazy time, but we have to always keep speaking truth to power. I think speaking truth to power is important because you have to stand up for your reputation, who you are, and not be affected by these lies and be strong and to really keep persevering through it all is so important, so important. We're coming at the end of
How did Samantha, I mean, I just wanted to ask Samantha if it's possible. How when did you actually get an inkling that something was not right about your reputation?
So I knew something was wrong when I started seeing tabloids that said horrible things that weren't true. And I saw people responding to them. And so being in the United States and not in Great Britain, I knew a couple of things. I couldn't afford to do battle with them. Yeah, I could send in complaints, but they were falling on deaf ears. But there wasn't a whole lot at that time I could do. And so it became this process of researching, finding out what I could do legally, trying to find ways to keep speaking out in public and saying, that's not true, that's not true, that's not true. And unfortunately, like that group thing swell, is that once people want to believe something, you're not going to change their mind, especially when you're looking at something at the royal level, which like supersedes everything. It is so grandiose as an opiate that there's nothing I could say that could compare to what people wanted to believe about someone at the royal level. It was like, wow, it's a character assassination. I think there should be a new classification for homicide. Character assassination is like, yeah, you've got a body and you're going about your life, but you are dead in the water until you sort that out and disprove it. Whether you Google your name and you want to get a job, whether you want to interact with people and your neighbors might see something and go, oh my God, that's her. Act like you don't see her and walk by really fast. It is so stigmatizing. And when you run around trying to defend yourself against something that's not real, people are like, yeah, sure. Because, you shouldn't have to defend yourself against something that's not real. But when you start a defense, it's like they think you're giving it credence. No, I'm not giving it credence. I'm trying to point out there's not true. But they're in this cloud, this like euphoria. They're not going to hear you no matter what. It is such a strange phenomenon. It's very scary. And, we live through it. We get exonerated at one point, but by then you've lost a lot of time. The damage has been done. You stressed, you lost sleep, you cried, you spent all this time in your life spinning your wheels about something that wasn't true, just to get to the point where you can say, okay, now I've lost 5, 6, 7 years of my life, and great is not true, and people are apologizing. They see that I was telling the truth, but I lost all that time that could have been more productive had I not been dealing with the stigma falsely. Had I not been, I could have been out enjoying my life instead of being afraid because I was getting, threats and I didn't want anybody photographing me out, in the water on a boat. So you modify the way you live your life because you don't want people to see you. You don't want them to tell stories about you. You don't want them to interact in a weird way. And it sucks. I mean, you literally lose years of your life. And then you've got a body, but your character's been assassinated. So it should be a different kind of homicide. And the people who do that to others should be charged with character homicide.
Yes, absolutely. Something's got to change. I think something has got to change.
Yeah, it's actually quite terrible when you said that you didn't want to go out and stuff like that. For me, even though I won, I remember when I got the call from my lawyer and he said we won, he was shocked. And I remember it was like 8 years I had already won 4 other cases, but for some reason I had to win it in Norway for it to be valid because of the same racism, because they don't respect other cultures, they don't respect other systems, right? And I remember I was so tired. But then the next thing I thought is like, okay, now what? It's 8 years, I'm 53. I haven't been able to work properly. I haven't been able to provide for my son. My son has lived a life being ridiculed because, thankfully he had very good buddies at school, but it was all these crazy things that Alf was putting out there, creating this website for his son and then having all these conversations. I mean, now what? You're left with this thing because then the government still, instead of saying, okay, Paula, we apologize. No, they continue with their racism and arrogance. They don't apologize. You will. And the thing is with people that are narcissistic and sociopaths, they will never apologize. They will continue. They will, because what they've done is so horrific that it's better to continue perpetrating that than say, you know what, I made a mistake, I'm sorry, because the damage they've caused will create too much liability.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. 'Cause I'm always thinking maybe Megan will come around and she'll apologize or be better. And it's a lost cause. It won't ever happen.
My daughter too. Teenagers can do a lot of damage, and they don't want to own up. They're not going to apologize. They're not going to confess because that's painful for them to deal with. When what they don't realize is that would help them improve their lives. If they confess, if they apologize, there are intrinsic rewards to that. There are extrinsic rewards. It's reciprocal. That means moving forward, they've matured, and they're less likely to interact in ways with others that will be injurious reciprocally. In other words, it's a maturity thing. And when they become accountable, that's when they grow, and that's when they start being freer to live their lives the right way. Right. Because they're going to keep creating tripwires. They're going to treat others like this. And sadly, it's going to affect them as well. Not maybe immediately, but apologizing and just doing the right thing is so easy. And it avoids a lot of all that other stuff and years of problems. Yeah.
Wow. For me, it's not even an apology. I don't want an apology. I want people to be held accountable. Accountability seems to be a dirty word for some reason in this woke world.
Right. Yeah.
I don't care about apologies. Apologies are not going to bring back the 8 horrible years ongoing that my son and I had to go through. Apologies are not going to bring back I don't know how many years, 4 years that you are ongoing with this, Sam. It's not going to bring that back. I don't care about apologies anymore. We're way past apologies. I want people to be held accountable, and that's what I want. And that's what I'm aiming for right now. It's not revenge, like the book, the Tom Bowers. It's not revenge. It's justice. It's something that, there's such an inequality of things, and people talk about equality, we're all the same, and there are all these buzzwords, but when it comes right down to it, there's none of that. If I had committed perjury in my court, or if I had given a false accusation against my ex-husband, I can guarantee you the Norwegian government would come after me. Mm-hmm. Megan committed perjury in the United Kingdom. There's no two ways about it. This is a woman who didn't forget about anything. She committed perjury and she's let go. If you had said a lie, Sam, I can guarantee you would be called out until day's end.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. They'll be like, gotcha, and they run that in the ground, and that's all you would ever hear about. So ladies, I don't know. I'm hoping that from this talk that you guys have been given some kind of vindication from people to start to look closely at the facts, to look closely at information that is being said, and to not just take things like for you, Sam, firsthand, because we know a lot of lies have been said about you and people just want to run with what they hear. And let's just hope that things will get better for some women in this crazy world we live in with these narcissists, because woman on woman, man on woman, right? It's people doing bad things to hurt other women that don't have as much power. And that's what is real bad, because how do you fight against that? How do you go up against it ever? So thank you guys for being with me. I love you, ladies. Thank you.
Okay, everyone. Thanks for watching this video with my conversation with Samantha and Paula. I hope that you have some more insight, that you have an understanding as to how things have really transpired with these two women and everything that they have gone through. Send me an email, make a comment, subscribe to my channel, like this video, and let's continue the conversation. I really do want to hear what you have to say about this. Okay, thank you. And until next time, peace and love. Bye-bye.